All right, I'm not recording my belly this time, so that's good. All right, here we go. Okay. So welcome all 8 of you today. 9. Welcome all 9 of you today. So today's class will be, we're going to talk about something new. I have never taught this last year because last year this did not exist. So this is something new for me too, as I'm learning it. It's ES modules in the browser. We're going to talk about WebRTC, which may benefit you for the bonus mark for the assignment too. And it's just kind of neat to know. A little bit about NPM, which will help you for next year's class with Rich, and a little bit about Webpack and all the module stuff that comes with that, and a little bit about the Vue ecosystem. Just a high level, quick, couple minutes each. What you need to know. And it's not just Vue. When I'm introducing the Vue ecosystem, think there's also an equivalent to the React side as well. Okay. Oh, before we go on, I do have announcements. All right. Announcement number 1. I also want you to make sure, or not make sure, well, just be aware that, okay, we've been using fetch all along to do a GET request, right? But check it out. In the documentation, you can actually also do post request. So here is doing a fetch. Here's what a fetch looks like using a post request. So they have method post. So you can see they're using an optional parameter here as the second argument, and they're using the post as the method. A bunch of header stuff here, and the body will carry your form data, for example. Just want you to be aware of that. Not only there, but the REST client too. Remember how I showed you in VS Code, there's something called REST client, which I showed you how to do a GET request. Well, not only can you do a GET request there, but you can also do a post request. And here's the example right here. So you can also do a post to whatever, and as long as you include the header stuff and some of the data, then you can also make a post request from REST client as well. Just want to make you aware also that at the end of the course, the maximum mark you can get is 100%. So some of you are on track to beat that, but the maximum mark I can give is 100%. Next announcement, download the latest Chrome edition if possible for next class. That will be useful. Okay, and for days like today where the weather is bad, I thought, okay, well, presentations are coming up. I will allow you, if you want, to make your presentation on YouTube. So let's say it's bad weather or whatever, you just send me a link of your YouTube presentation, and that's good. If you're in a group of 4, let's say, and you can't get together, I will accept, 4 individual YouTube recordings. Just make it easy on me by creating a YouTube playlist. Right? So you can do that. And oh, I finally brought the laptop stickers for Vivian and Joel from last class because you went. So remind me during break. I have the stickers. Okay. All right. So today's class, we're going to talk about a little bit about WebRTC, which allows peer-to-peer communication, but you don't have to pay anything, which is really cool. It's free, open source. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong screen here. I'm looking at there we go. And we're going to talk about ES modules and everything that comes with that. And if you remember last class where I showed you a little bit about the Vue CLI, how we structured that whole application, and I showed you all those folders, I want to take you back in time to how JavaScript was initially used, and then gradually show you the problems that were encountered in the past several years and the solutions that were made in order to get to that Vue CLI that you see today. All right, so WebRTC. What's the hype about this one is it's free, it's open source, and it allows you to have browser-to-browser peer-to-peer communication, which is, at the time it was invented, it was unheard of. So the hype about this is it allows you to communicate to someone, potentially, peer-to-peer, which doesn't really involve a server, no platform. Now, having said that, it does involve a server at the beginning just to handshake the two. So here, for example, is Alice. That's her computer with her browser. And here's Bob with his computer. So initially what happens is this computer sends a signal to the signaling server, and this basically tells this computer, okay, you're at this IP address, and this is how we can get to you. Great. And then the next computer sends a request as well, and same thing. Okay, we can reach you at this IP addresses, and these are the routes that we could possibly get to you. And then basically, once both are sent their requests in, the server says, okay, here's how you will both meet. Boom. And then now both browsers will communicate directly without the use of a server. That's the theory behind it. So the good thing is WebRTC is free, open source API that enables modern browser-to-browser peer-to-peer communication. Another good thing is it's capable of text chat. It's capable of real-time voice using your microphone, as well as video using webcam communication. However, in my experience, the bad thing is you will have connectivity problems. For example, we're in an institution at Georgian where it'll have corporate firewalls. So if you're trying to connect, like even when I tried it from my laptop to my library computer downstairs, it wouldn't connect, because I think you need to set up your own signaling server or something like that. And the bad thing is, because WebRTC is not dedicated to any specific port, it'll use any port greater than 1024. So that's hard to configure in a firewall, because firewalls, you need to know the port number. Just to let you know which companies are using WebRTC today, here's a link here, a list of WebRTC products. And some of the companies are here, and some of the products are here. So I think the most popular one is this one here, Twilio. I hear a lot about that company. They have a really cool API that allows you to send text messages and different things like that. And here's another one, TalkBox, which has been around forever. So these are just a couple of companies that you may have heard of that use WebRTC. So this server, in a nutshell, it handshakes the two computers' IP addresses, which port number they should communicate on, and a protocol, UDP or TCP. Okay, that's the theory. Here's the practical. So here's where you come in. I want you to try this on your own computer. Okay. So let's create a new HTML file. Okay. Let's open up your VS Code. Let's create a new file. You could call it index.html. I will call it webrtc2.html. Go ahead and do that. Let's do the exclamation mark tab to get the structure in place in VS Code. The first thing I want you to do, based on my slide for number 1 on the left-hand side, is I said here, create a new web page and include the following script. So go ahead and copy this script tag right here on my slide and put that in your page right here, bottom, near the bottom. Then you'll see on my slide, I have a link for number 2 on the left-hand side here, where it says, do this example. So I want you to open that link up in a new tab. So, click this example in a new tab. So it'll take you to the NPM page for this package, Simple Peer. So check it out. Here's a package that allows you to use WebRTC. And if you scroll down a bit under usage, I want you to copy a few things from here. So because we already have our HTML, just cut and paste the stuff that's important. So for example, here's the style. I would recommend copying that and just putting that in our HTML page in the head section. So I'll do that. So copy the style, put it inside my head section part. And then for everything here, where it says form, as well as the pre tag, don't include this script bundle.js. Don't include that, but just include the from the form all the way to the pre tag. Copy that and put that in your HTML section of your page. Should look like this now. So again, just to review, I copied and pasted the style, put it in the head section. I copied and pasted the form and the pre-tag, and I put that in the body section. And the script is at the very bottom. It's a simple peer. And then if you scroll down some more on that NPM page, you'll see some JavaScript code that begins with var peer. I want you to copy, forget this first line. We don't need this one. For var peer equals require, we don't need that. I just want you to copy starting from the second line all the way down. Copy all of that and put it in your JavaScript section. So let's create a new script tag in our page script and paste that. And then the final thing we have to adjust to this JavaScript code, as you can see in my slide, is it says change this line that says var p equals new peer. Change that line to var p equals new simple peer. So just add the word simple in front of the word peer with a capital S. So now it would look like this. So I just added the word simple in front of the word peer. And we're good to go. Now, you do need a server. I am using, if you don't have a server, I'll show you the one I use. If you click on extensions and search for something called live server, here is one popular server called live server. So that's what I will be using. You can use any server you want, it doesn't matter. So once you've installed that, then we can launch the server. So let's launch it. For me, I'm just going to launch it for Control-Shift-P, and notice how it opens up the menu, and I can say open with live server. So I will click on that. It will automatically open a browser tab. Now here's the thing what I want you to do. So it's looking at the correct file, assumedly. And then this is what I want you to do. I want you to hit your pound sign and then the number 1. So you're adding those 2 characters after the URL. Okay. And hopefully within a minute or 2, you're going to see something pop in the page. Yeah. Say it again? Oh, which block of code? So yeah. So this, starting from this block of code all the way down here, you copy that and put it in your script section. Is that, you've done that? Oh yeah, yeah. So change something, meaning in your simple peer here, whereas the first line where it says var p equals new peer, change that word to simple peer with capital S. Okay, so while that's going on, hopefully you'll get something that will pop up eventually. I'm getting nothing yet. Let me explain what's going on. So let's look at this code for a second. Zoom that in, because I just remembered we have to zoom. Okay. So what's happening is this. At the very beginning, there's going to be 2 peers, 2 browsers talking to each other. Whoever is first will have this pound sign 1 attached at the very end. If that's true, so if that URL has that hash of number 1 at the end, then this property is true. That means this current browser is the initiator. Great. This line here, P. Actually, let me try this one here. P on connect. Once it establishes a connection, it's going to send through this p.send command whatever you want in string format. So whatever, and we just added some math random. So it'll output something in the console, whatever, and some random decimal number. And then if we want to send something, where's my... If we want to send something, we just have to say p.send whatever. Let me see if, oh, there. So did you see this? So in your original page, you have this. So if you copy all of that, this long string is basically how to reach our browser. So once you have that and you copy that, open up a new tab and go to the same exact page, except this time do not put a number 1. Do not put a number 1 at the end of it. So it's just the same address with no number 1 at the end of it. Okay, so now, I have 2 tabs. Just to review, I have one tab with the hashtag number 1, another tab, the same address with no hashtag number 1. For this second tab, I'm going to paste that information and click submit. As soon as I click submit, I should get another object here. So just copy that JSON data and then paste that JSON into the first page. I'm going to go back. I copied it. I'm going back to the first page, putting it in the submit box, hitting submit. And I think it's done. I think we've established a peer-to-peer connection. Check it out. Go to your console. Here's that message I was talking about. Here's that data, whatever. See, I'm saying whatever plus rand. So I can now send messages through .p.send. Watch this. If I say p.send, hello world, right, any string, enter. Now go to your second tab, go to the console, the second tab. You can see it right there, hello world. Is that cool? So now if in the second tab, if I say p.send, that's cool, enter, go back to the first tab, it's right there. I'm chatting with myself, peer-to-peer, no server involved. Cool. Sometimes that's the thing with WebRTC. Sometimes it'll take a minute or two, or sometimes it'll crash. If you check your console, is there an error? If there's no error, then it's still working. If you see an error, then it's probably still working. Are you using Chrome? Okay. Yeah, so this is the essence of how you can create a WebRTC application. Keep in mind, it's not good. It's not just for text. You can also do it for video and audio. If you want, Matt, I've actually included. Hold on, let me just see my instructions here for a second. Yes. All right, let me go back to my slides. You have my slides open? Okay. Go to the next slide. If that didn't work for you, okay, so I'm gonna close my tabs. I'm gonna close my server. So I put a YouTube video here of me just doing exactly what you just saw. And I did that for backup purposes in case it didn't work for me live, but it did, so I'm not going to play it. But here, where I give you a link where it says text only, try opening this, Matt, into a new tab. Basically, I published the same exact page up to now.sh. So, but this time I included a form. So you could imagine behind the scenes. Let's take a look at what's happening behind the scenes. If I look at the view source. So basically, here's my button to send the message, and it will grab whatever I typed in the input box with the ID of message. So obviously, at the bottom, I'll have some kind of send message dot. Is that it? Some kind of click listener. Oh, this one here, I think. No. Which one was it? Is it this one? Based on incoming, or is it this one? No, it's this one. I think it's this one. Anyways, I basically hooked it up to a form, so the psend will trigger every time I click on the send button. So here it is. So I have, you should see this, Matt, within a minute, right? So you copy all that, open up a new tab, except this time without the number 1. Copy that. Paste without the number 1, and then I will paste as plain text just to make sure there's nothing screwy going on. Then I get another object. I copy that, put it in the first tab, paste as plain text, make sure there's no formatting going on. There, submit. And now in my chat room, I say connected. Now I already programmed the first tab to be me, Albert. So I say hello world, and so that way you have a label Albert, hello world. And then I go to my second tab. And you'll see it's right there. It'll say, hey, cool. And then this is me, Smarty, hey, cool. So, and then the first tab has the same information. So you're just using the infrastructure of JavaScript, what psend gives you, and you're just hooking up to HTML elements, and you can basically create a chat box. And so for your assignment 2, if you feel that ambitious, you can create this for the phone a friend. You don't have to have video or audio, because I was never successful with both video and audio in the same tab. I think it's because the computer doesn't know what to do with the same microphone using 2 different tabs. But I mean, whatever you want to do, you feel like being ambitious. Another thing to keep in mind is it needs HTTPS. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And when I mark your assignment 2, I'll be doing it locally. So things like this could possibly work if you choose to use that feature. And the final thing I want to say about WebRTC is just looking at the code. This is the kind of thing you'll see when you're making chats. Is that you'll have like a dot on with and you're looking for an event called signal, or a dot on with an event called connect. So if it connects, what do you do? Dot on. Here's this one here, dot on data. This is the one where when it receives data from the other peer, it'll do something, kind of thing. Right. So anyways, hope you like that. Hope you found that was neat. It's one of those technologies that's, even though it's been around, because of the connectivity problems, it hasn't really taken off as much as the hype it started with. But it's still potentially one of those game changers. That's based on the philosophy of the technology under it. Okay. Any questions on WebRTC? Let me see. Did I turn it off? Okay. Cool. Oh, I did provide a second link here for video and audio. Let me quickly do this. So this is why it won't exactly work. So let me try that one. And once that happens, let me get my second tab ready without the number 1. But I won't press enter just yet. What else is happening? Any questions on anything so far? Not even this class, but for this topic, but anything, comments about assignments or presentations, anything? No? My week's been pretty good. Have you ever? I actually visited on the south end. There's this new place called Jack's Urban Jungle. Have you been there? Oh man. Oh, a couple hours and you're sweating, you're done. It's like, oh man, you got the zip lines, you got the mountain climbing with different textures on each wall. You got this treetop trekking with the belays that you'll fall and you know, it's crazy. Oh, here it is. All right. Yeah, I got inspired when I saw my big fat belly last week. So no, I got to work out. Oh. All right, here we go. Copy that. Enter, paste that, submit. I got another one. Notice it's much longer, this one too. These are called ICE candidates. It's telling server, okay, this is how you can reach me. Oh wow, cool. So the first tab, second tab. So it kind of works, but because it's the same computer, you get. Cool. Let's close. Cool. Yeah, so that's WebRTC, a potential game changer. And it's just, you know, built into modern browser. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, which I lost. So the next topic is JX tooling from then to now. So when I showed you last week that Vue CLI and I ran, you know, Vue create my project, and it ran some stuff. And when we looked at the folder structure, it was very brief. And I was explaining, you know, okay, this is your package.json file. These are the different folders that it creates for you, the different components, all that. And I was saying it uses Webpack under the hood and all that. and how it compiles the different components into one index, one HTML, one HTML, one CSS, one JavaScript. So I know as a beginner that could be a lot. And so what I propose doing, and I've never taught this before, is I'm going to go back to how you were taught in web class here, where you're beginning with HTML, just one HTML, one JS. We're going to begin with that. Then I'm going to slowly introduce the problems when we started developing larger applications. And with each problem comes a different tool as a solution. And that's why Vue CLI uses all those things under the hood. So hopefully I'll get you from beginning to Vue CLI, and you'll understand a little bit more why you need things like Vue CLI and what's happening under the hood. Okay, so I'm going to start at the very beginning, where we're building a website with just plain HTML and JavaScript. We're going to come across several pain points along the way. Okay, and so the first pain point is it'll be annoying to find and download new versions of libraries all the time, especially if you're dealing with larger apps. And so the solution to that is called package managers. That's where NPM gets involved. Okay, you solved that problem, but then a new problem comes is that, okay, you don't have to go find and download anymore, but you're still digging through something called node modules folder to find the path of each of the stuff that you've downloaded. And the solution is to use module bundlers, like Webpack. Okay, great, but then every time you change something in your code, you always have to type Webpack in the terminal, command terminal. Like, you don't want that. So then you have different task runners. So it'll watch if you, it's just like hot module reloading. When you make a change, it'll automatically refresh, kind of thing, as well as other things like minifying your code, and that kind of thing. And also, maybe you're trying to target other browsers that are older, like IE, and they can't read ES6. Don't worry, you can hook in a plugin to transpile to use Babel to transpile from the modern stuff to the old stuff. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to do. All right. So in the beginning, you have a simple page. So I'm going to create this page. Let's go here. Let's go say, I'll call it index2.html. This tag in there. Let's say my source is index2.js. Hello world. Great. So actually, hold on. All right, so I've created a basic HTML page. I've included one scripts tag pointing to index2.js. So let's create that now, index2.js. And I'm just going to console log hello. Okay, so all of you know this. Open it up, index2. There's my hello world. If I look at the console, it says hello, it's working. All of you understand that. However, the question I have for you is, when I say something like this, script source index.js, the first question is, where does the browser assume index.js is located when you say that? What's the path? Yeah. In the same folder as, in the same level as your index.html. Okay. Let's try this for a second. I'm going to get a little bit off topic, but I'm doing this on purpose because it'll make sense later on. I'm going to change this hello world to be blank, and I'm going to do a text content in JavaScript. I'm going to fill that in with hello world in JavaScript. So let me just put I don't have to put an ID here, but whatever. And so then in the index, I'll say const h1 equals document.query selector. I'm looking for my ID h1, and then I'll just say h1.text content equals hello world. Okay. Let's refresh. Let's see what happens. Refresh. Not displaying, and there's an error. Try it again. Let me clear the console. Refresh. Not set property text content of null. Why am I getting an error? Why is it not displaying? What do you think? So the reason it's not showing is because this script tag, which I put in the head section, it's trying to run, which means, okay, it's running, and then when it comes across, you know, these lines, this does not exist yet. When it's looking for H1, at this point of the parsing, H1 does not exist because it has yet to read the rest of the document. That's why best practices is you put script at the bottom. By that time, the browser has parsed most of the HTML. Now it can start running the JavaScript, which probably depends on the DOM elements that came before it. Right, so if I put it at the end, save that, refresh, yeah, that works. Good. So just by that example, what can we say about the order, placement of script? Very, very important, right? Especially in larger apps when you have multiple scripts, and script number 10 depends on script number 9, and script number 9 depends on script number 2. And later down, like next year, when another person is developing that code, they don't know that, and they start to modify and change the order or delete something, and it breaks. Like, it's terrible. Okay. All right. So does placement of the script matter? Yes. Okay. Because again, just when the browser takes in or consumes this HTML page, it parses it. But as soon as it reaches the script tag, depending on the attributes of that script tag, it'll either download it or run it differently. And that's the point of the next slide. Oh, not yet. Actually, let me go to that one slide now. Come back to these slides in a second. Oh, where did it go? Okay, that's the slide. So this is what's happening under the hood, whether you realize it or not. I'm just going to pay attention to this first one right here. So when the browser consumes your HTML page, that's what the HTML parser is doing. It's consuming your markup, right? It's consuming the HTML, it's consuming the head stuff, the style stuff, whatever. And then as soon as it comes to your script tag, that's what the scripting is for. As soon as it hits your script tag, boom, it stops parsing the markup. And it goes immediately parses the script stuff. And then as soon as it finishes the script stuff, it immediately executes it. That's what the red line's for. It executes the stuff. And that's why you couldn't see our H1 tag, right? Because our H1 tag was over here on this line, green line. So it didn't exist yet. You understand? Okay. By the way, I don't know if you've heard about, show of hands who's heard of defer or ever used it. If you say script defer, that changes the landscape in terms of execution. So the parser will automatically parse the HTML. As soon as it hits the JavaScript, alongside it'll do parallel parsing as well, but the HTML also gets parsed. But after the HTML is finished, then it executes the JavaScript. And that's why defer is called defer. It'll defer the execution of the JavaScript until the very end. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's try that. So if I put this back to the top here, so it doesn't work, let's verify it does not work. Right? Same error as before. Let's put defer. You also have, as an FYI, you have also this async as well, which, based on this diagram, it looks like it executes. Oh, I see. So as compared to the first one, it executes after it finishes downloading, just like the first one. But you can see it's still parsing in parallel the HTML and the JavaScript. So at least it doesn't stop parsing. We'll come to this one in a second. Let's go back to. Okay. Now, so that's a basic page. Let's try to include another library that someone else has made. Okay, so gradually we're getting more complex, which will introduce more pain points. Let's say we wanted to include a library called moment.js. So let's go to their website, momentjs.com. Here is a popular library in JavaScript that deals with time. FYI, in case you didn't know, JavaScript has a terrible way of dealing with time. If you've ever used the native methods for displaying time and calculating time, it's terrible. That's why libraries like moment.js exist. It's very, very nice to work with. So we come to this, and you're a novice programmer, you're not novice web developer, and you're saying, okay, how can I use this? And you see the first thing you see is, what is this? Install, npm, yarn, NuGet, like what is that? Okay, forget that for now. You have your traditional download, which you know and love. Let's download that. Okay, so let's right-click that and save it. Right-click, save link as. Let's put it in the same folder as the other one. Okay, so moment.js. Here we go. Save. There. So then, in my HTML file, undo this for a second. I can say something like this: script, and order matters, right? So I'm going to make sure that this script, for when using moment, comes before I have to use it. So I just said this moment.js, which means that moment is now available to index.2js and as well as any other script that I include below index2. So in my index2js, I can use it. Right? I can just say something like this: h1 text content equals, and let me just copy, or oh, there it is. My slide. Here's one way to use moment. You could say something like this. So I'm just going to copy that in my slide, and I'm just going to replace my hello world with that. So if I refresh the page right now, it should give me the time, date and the time, because I'm using moment, and moment was included before my script, so it should work. Try it out, refresh. Haha, great. Okay, so I'm including other libraries, but as you can, imagine, if the larger your application gets, the more libraries you need, the harder it is to maintain. So the pain point is now, it's annoying to find these new downloaded. It's annoying to download these new versions of the different libraries. Okay. So you need some way to control that. Whoa, how come the lights went off? Oh well. Here is, yeah. Here's a little comic that I found while I figure out the lights. So if you used to know HTML, CSS, JS, now apparently front-end developers need to know Node, NPM, Grunt, Gulp, Webpack, Babel, and then he's saying, why do I need Node, which is a server-side thing for front-end? Right? Why do I need Node, a back-end for the front-end? All right, introducing the solution to not having to download things manually. In comes this package manager called npm. So back in 2010, only 8 years ago, several competing JavaScript package managers emerged. By 2013, you may have heard of Bower. Show of hands who's heard of Bower? No? Bower was the most popular at 2013. By 2015, Bower was no longer the most popular. It was now overtaken just by npm. And then I should mention that in 2016, Yarn is a competitor to npm, but under the hood, it still uses npm packages. So npm was invented as the package manager for Node. So when I asked you to earlier download and install Node, you got with it for free npm, which is the package manager for Node. And so keep in mind, think of Node as the console of the browser, but it's not in the browser anymore. It's just in a server computer with no browser attached to it. So you don't have things like document.whatever, because there is no document anymore, right? So and by the way, using package managers generally involves using the command line, which in the past was never a requirement for web developers. So let's go back to our moment for a second. When it says this, npm install moment save, we're going to try that. Okay, we're going to try this and see what that does. So in my slides, I said create to run these two commands here. Okay, so let's try that out. I'm going to open up. I'm going to open a new folder, call it temp, just so that I don't mess with anything else. I'm going to go into my temp folder instead. Oh, hold on, where to go? Is that a file or a folder? Oh. Try it again. Okay, so npm is a package manager that solves the problem of not having to download things like moment.js manually. Here's how to use it. When you're using the npm, the first thing you want to say is npm init, and just as a shortcut, just say -y. So you could try that. Enter. You don't have to, or you could just watch, whatever. All right. What that did, I don't know if you just caught that, is it created a new file called package.json, which looks like this. Okay. That's one of the things it did. Second thing it did, so if I do ls in, actually no, that's the only thing it did right now. What is that? So let's take a look at that again. This is just a JSON file, and it will keep track of every download that you make from here on in. Okay, so instead of going to moment.js to copy and download their JS file, you can now have use the terminal command line and say npm install moment, and it'll go to that website or somewhere and download that JavaScript for you. Okay, so let's try that out. So that I have that in my second command here. npm I moment. So that's what we're doing here. So in the website it says npm install moment -- save. By the way, you don't have to say -- save anymore. As of npm 6 and more, it's automatically assumed that you want -- save. What that -- save, what that originally meant was it's going to put that dependency of moment inside your package.json here. Because if you in the past when you didn't say it, it wouldn't include it in your package.json. Let's try it out. You'll see what I mean. npm install moment. By the way, you don't have to say install. You can just say npm I. Same thing. npm install moment. By saying this command, it's now downloading that moment.js that I no longer have to download, and it's now putting it in a folder called node modules. And there it is, node modules. Yeah. So here is here's the package.json file. Oh, hold on. Here's the package.json file that was created when I said npm init. And here's the node modules folder. Let's take a look at that structure. So here, as you can see, inside my node modules folder is all the moment stuff. Moment, and I can now access that moment JavaScript file within my node modules folder. So that means, okay, let me see. That should mean that in my index.html file, let's take away this script source. Say that. So now it should no longer work, right? Let me just test that theory. It should no longer work. No longer works. I don't see the time. But now, because I downloaded it, I can refer to it within, let's see, I think it's in my temp now. Temp node modules within moment.js there. So now I'm referring not to the internet way, but within my own local directory way. Let's see, refresh, see if that works, and it does. Okay, I solved the problem of having to download manually. Now it's doing it automatically. Great. That's good. But the bad thing is this. Here's the pain point is I don't want to have to manually type this all the time. I want something to automatically know. And so comes another solution, another tool. Back to my slides for a second. Now, here's the problem. Browsers cannot import code. Unlike other programming languages, JavaScript, when it was originally designed, had no way to import code from one file to another file. Question, why do you think originally JavaScript was originally designed to not import anything? Are you saying something? Okay. Because JavaScript was designed to run only in the browser with no access to the file system of the client's computer for security reasons. So for the longest time, organizing JavaScript code in multiple files required loading each script tag sequentially with a shared global variables. So that means, just like before, if I included the script tag of moment at the first line, every other script tag below that also has access to moment and everything else above it. That's a problem. Here's the solution. They tried to come up with a way to create modules in JavaScript. So in the year 2009, CommonJS was invented. And this is what you will use for next year's class with Rich. And this supports modules. It allows you to import, export JavaScript code without resorting to global variables. Okay. Node.js, which is, again, what you'll learn next year, again, that's a runtime designed to run on the server, which means it does have file access. It does have rights to the file system. Here, question, what is the difference between Node and the browser's console? So when you're sitting in Rich's class next year and you're dealing with Node for the first time, now actually, let me just show you something here. I'm going to type in Node in the command line. Give me this arrow thing. When you're sitting there, just imagine you're sitting in front of a browser console, except you have no access to the browser stuff. So I could still say, let A equals hello world. Okay, has that. If I say console log A, right? It's a JavaScript runtime, except it's in the server, because if I say document dot whatever, it won't even recognize let B equals document dot where it doesn't even recognize H1 because there's no H1 because there's no document. There is no document dot whatever because you're dealing with a server. You're not dealing with a browser. Same thing with fetch. If I said fetch, remember the API on GitHub? Let's try that with my profile. There is no fetch default in Node because fetch is a browser API. It's reliant on the browser. That code is in the browser. It still has set timeout, right? So you can still have stuff like this. Console log hi. 2 seconds, I think it is. Let's see, 1. Oh, I messed up. 1, 2. Oh, I'm missing a quote. 1, 2. It still has, some of the stuff, but it's just on the server. Okay, keep that in mind for next year's class. Okay, now on the slide here, I'm going to paste this code into my JS file, and I'm going to run it in Node, and then I'm going to run it in the browser. And I want you to notice something. So notice what this code does. The first line is the key. This word require, as soon as you see the word require, think, oh, that's using the 2009 method called CommonJS style of importing. Okay, so I'm going to copy this code, put it in my JS file, which is this one. That for now, comment that. This, save. So I now have this code inside a .js file. Watch me run that code within Node. To run it within Node, let me get out of here for a second. Control-C. I'm going to say node index2.js, right? Enter. Oh, hold on. what happened here. Oh, because it cannot find, what am I missing? Required. Did I download Moment? I didn't download. I did. Why isn't it finding it? It should have worked, except I'm missing something. Index 2, throw error. Cannot find module. Yes. Oh, and my. Yes, thank you. So I'm gonna move my index.js inside my temp folder. And might as well move the index.2html inside the temp folder as well. Thanks. So let me try it again. Node index2.js, enter. It worked. It says hello from JavaScript, which is from this console log. And then it gave me the date and time, which came from this. So realize just what happened under the hood. This line here, require, Node understood that. It knew how to run that in the server side. But let me run that in the browser. So open the browser, go to temp 2. Require is not defined. The browser does not know how to require because it has no access to the file system. That's the problem. What's the solution? By the way, I put an asterisk here beside browsers cannot import code because, as I'm about to teach you in the next hour, as of recently, that statement is not true anymore for modern browsers. We'll get to that. Another little comic. These days, people use NPM as a front-end package manager. That seems like a questionable choice to me. How can JavaScript in the browser properly use modules designed for Node? Solution. Webpack. Module bundler. It's module loaders. So a JavaScript module bundler, the tool that gets us around that previous problem by using a build step. So since the module bundler does have access to the file system, it will find all the require statements in all of your JavaScript code. So let's say, for example, it begins with our JS file. It sees that first statement of require. It'll look at that and fetch it, do what it needs to do. It'll look at any other dependencies that other JavaScript files require, go there as well, grab it, and basically replace the contents with one single bundled JavaScript file with no more require statements in there. So it's basically taking all your JavaScript files that have the word require, is going through all of them, parses through all of them until there's no more, can't see any more require statements, bundles it all together, gives you one JavaScript file that works. So the history of that is this. In 2011, you had a tool called Browserify. Show of hands who's heard of Browserify? Yeah. That pioneered the usage of this node-style require on the front end. However, in 2015, Webpack became and still is the most popular. And that's what Vue CLI is using under the hood. It's using Webpack as a module bundler. I'm going to give a brief mention out and a shout out because as of last year, something else came called Parcel. And the reason why Parcel came out was because the majority of web developers hated Webpack. It's like looking through this, except it could be so big and complicated and so huge. And you have to manually change it yourself, kind of thing. At the time, anyway. Now it's not so much. So Parcel came out to challenge Webpack's configuration complexity by offering simple zero config, meaning you don't have to worry about that package.json stuff for Parcel. You just run Parcel on your one file and it'll do the rest. And that's why I thought it was a game changer. It's still not as popular as Webpack, but and then, oh, by the way, when Parcel came out with that zero config, Webpack, the next version of Webpack was zero config as well. Go figure. Okay, so the solution is to use a module bundler, which I will demonstrate now. So I'm not going to use Webpack because it can be very complex. I'm just going to use Parcel. under the basic concepts are still there. Okay, so we're going to run parcel on our HTML page. If you visit parcels page, this is all you need to do. First, you install it with npm. Create a package.json file using npm init. Let's say you had one index.html file, and all you had was one script in there, which had this. All you have to now say is parcel.html page, and it'll do the rest. It'll magically do the rest. I'll show you that. Let's try that out. In my command line, I've already installed parcel. Let's see. If I say parcel-v, does it give me version? Okay, so I have parcel. We're going to run parcel on our HTML page. So all I'm going to say is parcel, and then the name of our web page, which was index2.html. Enter. Server running. Oh, what's happening here? No such file. Am I getting this error message because why? Temp. Oh, temp. That's all right. Okay, we don't want that. We just want this. I believe. Yes. Yes. Pretty good. Control C. Parcel. See what it does now. Running the server. There. Okay. So if I go there. Okay, because it opens up my web page. And there's my web page, right? Working as before. Now, it works. And let's say we're satisfied that it works. What you can now do is this. You can say, based on the web page, where's the parcel web page again? When you're ready for production, because right now it's not, let's imagine that this is a very complicated app with lots of require statements everywhere, with lots of JS. And then if you're satisfied with it's working, what you say is you build for production by saying, where's my build thing? There it is. npm run build. Okay, let's try that. npm run build. Oh, shoot. Oh, that's why. Sorry, my bad. I need to say parcel build my entry file. So parcel build index2.html. Now keep your eye on this directory of temp. Oh, it already has a dist there. Never mind. Let me delete this. I'm going to delete this dist for a second. Delete. Okay, imagine there's no dist there, because there isn't. Just delete it. Now I can say parcel build. Now watch this. There. It created a new folder called dist, which means distribution. It's going through all the different, and look what it made. Inside the dist folder, it created an HTML page. It has a new JavaScript file, as well as a .map file. So let's take a look at that. Let's be curious and open up one of these JavaScript files. Wow. Look at that. Not only is it minified, but where's our code? Keep in mind, our code was this. So let's look for hello from JavaScript in this mess. I'm going to say Control F, hello Java. There it is. It's at the bottom. So it needs to load all of that because it's bundling up all in a modules kind of format, and then it can run our code here. Here's hello from JavaScript. Here's our moment stuff. So that's where our code is located. So when I said before, last class, when we were using the view CLI, and I showed you, okay, in that one .view file, you had the markup, you had the CSS, you had the script. Imagine that Webpack, which is a module bundler just like Parcel, is now compiling each of the scripts and all of the different components into one JS file so that it's working. It's going to minify it. It'll Babel it as well. Let's check. Let's see if it works with. Does it use Babel? Does Parcel use Babel? Let's try it out. Let's try to use a modern way. So in my console here, instead of saying hello from JavaScript using the old ES5 and before, I'll just use backticks, and I'll say, hello, and then I'll use my template literals. Name, where is name coming from? I'll have to say names here. Const name equals Albert. Hello, Albert, world, whatever, okay? Save. Let's compile that again. So let's delete my dist. I don't have to keep on deleting this. It'll just overwrite, I think. And then let's run that again. So parcel build index2.html. Let's see what happens under the hood. Let's see if Babel is included in Parcel, which I believe it should. Okay, it's done already, I believe. Yeah, dist. Let's open up their JavaScript. Okay, let's take a look at hello. Let's find hello. Let's see if it's what it does. Aha, look. So it translated my backticks into regular old style ES5 way, and it used the .concat method, which I didn't even know it existed, which is, I guess, is an old method. So not only does Parcel bundle everything, not only does it minify everything, it also does Babel under the hood. That's why in the Vue CLI, when I showed you that custom way, when I said to create my app, remember this, where it said you had a choice between the default and the manually, and when it said send manually, you can have Babel, which you could have different CSS processors for Sass, and different lintings, like whatever. You have all these different options. That is the purpose of a module bundler. It's a very powerful tool that does a lot of things under the hood for you. Yeah, question. Same idea. So I'm showing you Parcel because it's a tool just like Webpack. They both are called module bundlers. They both compile or transpile all the different JavaScripts into one JavaScript. You can have plugins that will have Babel included. You can have different plugins. What else did this do? But just different things. So the Vue CLI that this is coming. You can now see where that's coming from, right? Because Parcel Webpack is built under the hood of Vue CLI. Go there. Let's see. Okay, great. I now have a tool that does all that. The only pain point now is I don't want to have to type, because it's just too painful. Parcel build or Webpack build or whatever build. So then you have another tool called task runners. Here's the history. In 2013, a show of hands who's heard of Grunt? Okay, in 2013, Grunt was the most popular front-end tool for that. Then in 2014, it was surpassed by Gulp. Show of hands who's heard of Gulp? Same thing. Today, using NPM itself and its scripting availability, that's the most popular. And the reason why I'm giving you the history is so that you don't have to later, like, it kind of saves you some time, like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have to learn that anymore because it's becoming less and less popular. Not to mean that you don't have to learn it, but it's good to know that you don't have to invest your time in learning things that are slowly going away. So let's now modify our package.json to include a build script. So I don't want to have to say parcel build, whatever, anymore. And so how I change that is this. I can go to the package.json file, and then under scripts here, every package.json file has a scripts section. And what that means is, just like last week when I said npm run serve, and it showed you the Vue's automatic web page. Here is where you could say something like that as well. So you can say build, so that's going to be your keyword, build. So if I say npm run build, what's it really doing under the hood? It's going to do this. It's going to say parcel build index2.html. Save. So now in my command line, if I say npm run build, it should automatically, I don't have to worry about file names and things like that. So it's doing the same thing, right? Okay, now I'm still typing it. But I could also serve it as well. Hold on, let me just see where I'm at. Parcel, yes. Serve. And just like last week when I said npm run serve, I could say serve here as well. Serve, and then you just say index2.html. So here I have my own npm run serve. npm run serve, enter, and it just it does the same thing as before, right? So why is that beneficial? Even though I'm still typing it, the reason why that's beneficial is because next year, for Rich Freeman's Node class, when you're downloading different things, you don't have to worry about, is it Webpack, is it Parcel, like what's the command line structure? You just have to say npm run build or npm run serve, and it'll do what it's supposed to do. Whether it's Angular, whether it's React, whether it's Vue, whether it's Parcel, like whatever, you just say npm run whatever, and you don't have to worry about what you're using under the hood, right? Okay. So now that we're invested in using a build step with JavaScript modules, we need a tool that automates parts of that build process, and that's what the build is about. So in conclusion, just let me wrap it up. Oh, I forgot to mention there's something called watch as well. So the watch is, when you say npm run watch, you don't have to physically type npm run build anymore. It'll automatically run npm run build every time something changes. Anyways, in conclusion, we went from plain HTML to JavaScript using these different tools. You have package manager, which is npm, module bundler, which is Webpack and Parcel, or Parcel, transpilers like Babel, and task runners, npm scripts within package.json. Okay, so there's a lot of moving pieces under the hood, which can be very daunting, especially for new beginners. And the JavaScript land changes rapidly. Okay, now what's good about today is that these frameworks, and here's the key, and I got this quote from somewhere. It says, what's good is that frameworks these days often come with these tools out of the box to make the process easier, such as, and we did this last week, right? Vue create my app. Here's Angular's way of doing the same thing. ng new my app, which you'll do next year. React's way. So as you can see, the big three, they have all their own CLIs, so that when you run and create something new, everything is built out of the box. You don't have to worry about configuring it. You just have to worry about coding. That's where we're at today. Yeah, hopefully that was an eye-opener, because I know it can be very daunting next year when you're immediately immersed in it. I'm hoping this journey into the history of JavaScript has helped you understand why you need CLIs like Vue CLI now. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, let's take a, oh yeah, so check it out. Before we take a break, so one thing I didn't mention before with the Vue. So we had our, let's go to our Vue for a second. Close this, I don't need this anymore. Close folder. Let's go back to that Vue app that I had before, which I think was in my desktop. No, it was in my node folder. Node folder, Vue, my project, yeah, go there. Okay. So I'm in my, so this is what we did last week, right? So again, here are all the different components. Notice how each .vue file has a markup, HTML section, JavaScript section, and a CSS section. Again, so now you can understand that when you run a build command, for example, it'll compile all of these different sections and create one index HTML, one CSS, one JS file, which I have not yet demonstrated with Vue. So let's do that now. So in Vue, all you have to say is Vue, Actually, I'm not even sure what to say. I think it's just npm run build. Yeah, so I'm checking out their package.json. Here's their view command to build. It's view CLI service, which I don't have to remember that. All I have to remember is it's under build. Okay, so I just say npm run build. Watch the folder structure. There should be a new folder called dist being created eventually. So it's building, building, building. It's going through all the different components, because all the different components have markup, JavaScript. And so there it is. It's called dist. There, it just created. So I opened that up. Ha! I got CSS, assets, JavaScript, HTML. So at the end of the day, remember last week I said it's no longer the days where you create one HTML file, one JavaScript, one CSS. It's now like this. That statement is true and false. At the end of the day, when you build, it's still one index HTML, one JS file, one CSS file. It's just that you have all this tooling in the background to help you get there. Yes? Whew. Let's take a break. Let me just say, yeah. So you'll have 20 minutes break in essence, but let me introduce in-class exercise 11. It's really easy for weekly learning. Let me, I'm a student though, so that you'll see what I can see what you see. So it's write your own pseudocode for the 50-50 lifeline method, except you're just using English words. I don't want code. So if you click on this in-class exercise, it's a discussion, like a forum kind of thing. You have to create your own, you have to contribute to the discussion thread before you can see other threads, okay? So I'm saying here, write something like this. That's your in-class exercise. Write something like that, except your algorithm of how you think you should implement your 50-50. Okay, so once you create thread, put that in, you post that, you'll see other people post theirs, comment on one of them, and you'll get full marks. All right, and then the lab is similar. The lab is to actually implement it. So lab 11 is to implement your in-class exercise, and that's it. Okay. All right, let's take a 20-minute break. And yeah, cool. Yes. Upload the what? Upload my solution, my code. Oh, I see, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Hey, good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
How's the road conditions up there? You have a travel spot here?
Well, I drove to my girlfriend's house and walked 15 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Cold.
Oh, yeah.
But
how's work going?
it's going all right.
Yeah.
I was just telling them. So when I first started here in 2012, it took a year, and then I took 4 years off.
Right.
And I didn't do any programming in those 4 years.
Okay.
I came back.
Yes.
My first class was Node. I was like sitting there. I'm like, what's going on? Like I thought this was gonna be like if statements and stuff. Yeah.
So I'm glad I'm doing this class for the others.
Oh yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Rich was good though. I told him basically like, hey, like by the way, I know nothing. So yeah.
How did you ended up?
Yeah, I think he took a little bit of like mercy on me.
Was that Rich as well?
Yeah, like I did everything that he showed us in class.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as I went. Like, because it was pretty crazy. Oh yeah. How have you been, man?
I've been pretty good. Now, what's interesting is that Scott McCrindle, because you know about the whole series.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
So,
You excited?
yeah.
Cool. That's good to hear. Yeah.
I'm just have one more week of this. Service work.
Mm-hmm.
And then relax with presenting. Now think about it.
Uh-huh.
And a couple of changes I want to do. I want to see if I can include you in a
That'd be cool.
transition here. One was some other tools that came out that I brought my Twitter. I just bookmarked them. I haven't seen them.
Yeah. Well, like I feel like at least you've taught it once, so you now have like the foundation set. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could like teach the first probably like 5 or 6 weeks and not change a thing.
Yeah.
And then you could during that time get the rest ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nice because I feel like I eventually want to come and teach like a class or two part time, like probably just one, but like after a couple of years of it'd probably be like a C# class because that's all I do at work anyhow. So
That'd be great.
so like I'd like to do that too, and I feel like it'd be like probably the first time you teach it would be like ridiculous amount of work to like get it ready. But then,
Right. Actually, you know what I saw? Here, just a second. This is what I saw last week. Georgian College, Collingwood. In the news. Where'd it go? Georgian College, Collingwood. In the news.
yeah.
So this was dated last month.
Yeah.
It's talking about the South Georgia Bay campus, talking about new programs.
Mm-hmm.
There's one statement in there. Georgian has decided to go further, offering 2 more programs coming September 2019. Snow Resort.
Cool.
Who's going to teach that, though?
Mm-hmm.
They need
for
someone.
sure. Yeah, I'm not ready yet. No, I don't want to. I want to be like an expert before I like become a teacher.
You don't have to become an expert. Just you can teach right now.
Oh yeah. I feel like I don't know. Like I would like doing that, but I don't know if that's what I want to do the whole time. Like maybe eventually. But I want to like be right in the middle of it for a while.
Yeah, I get you.
Because the amount that like I've been learning at work is crazy. Like, those guys I work with are like on some next level, man. They're all like geniuses. So yeah,
that's so good.
It's awesome. Yeah, I got really lucky. And the best thing is too, this type of job I can, if I work here for like 4 or 5 years, that's like amazing on a resume because like, hey, by the way, have been programming a product that's sold all around the world. Like one of the 3 programmers working on it. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I'll get a job at like Amazon or something.
Well, the best, I think, I don't know, for me personally, I think the best would be work from home.
Oh yeah, that would be
traffic. And get paid.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I've never had the chance actually. I think I told you I never worked in the industry. I've never had the chance to work with some of the guys, the China guys at the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If they're out there, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, this is the one issue with the remote jobs is it's harder to learn from those kind of guys when you're doing it remotely because for me, when I like am stuck on something, I'll just walk over to one of their desks and be like, hey, dude, what's up? Want to show me how to do this? Like, but you know, remotely it'd be like, you know, drafting up an email like, hey Jim, like yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nice going to like having like the team environment and stuff. And that's how my work, there's only one person who works from home. Like everyone else comes in because they want to like have the team environment. Yeah. So, which is cool because a lot of businesses are moving away from that. Okay. Like especially in Toronto and stuff. Yeah. Like,
just you work wherever you are.
Yeah, like that's what my dad does. He works from home like usually 5 days a week. And he's a mainframe architect.
So cool. Yeah.
Yes. He's been doing that for like 20 years.
My dad did COBOL for a long time too. These are China.
Yeah,
You've done COBOL here, right?
Yeah, I hate it.
I hate it.
Yeah, no, I hate it too. And my dad, he was like, he loves it, but for something that he loves, the amount of stress that he has, I'm like, I would never want to do what you do, like, and then also his whole like views are distorted because for him, he's making the same money he did 20 years ago, whatever, like. Because like COBOL is still highly demanded, even more so now because now no one knows it anymore, and no one wants to learn it, right? So like to find an expert in it, he's still getting paid like ridiculous money. So he thinks that I can just come out of school and get like $70,000, $80,000 a year to start. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like unless I do what you do, like, and I don't want to do what you do. So yeah.
I think I failed the first time, so I took it again. I got a D. I think I got B or D. Anyway, I didn't like it at all. And I think I learned something about myself that my mind doesn't think low level. It only likes the higher level.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I agree with that statement. Like C++ is like as far down as I want to go. Objective C, I'm like, like I don't need that. Right. But yeah, one of my computer programmer options I'll get to do a C++ class, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Because like the thing is, when you're working, like I'm always working C#, JavaScript 1 to 2, and like you can do the most ridiculous things in C# so easily. Okay. Like you take it for granted, but then when you have to actually write it out in C++, it's like, oh, you know, a 2-hour C# job just took you 8 hours to do in C++. And you're like, oh man, but it gives you like a sense of like. I feel like you learn more about like what your options are even in like a higher level language because like for example you could use you might use a list, right, but then it would probably be way faster in some cases to use like a hash map instead, right, and you wouldn't know that unless you like actually wrote it out in C# and you'd be like, oh, or C++, you'd be like, oh, that's a way better spot for a hash map. Just like little tiny things that can improve your application, but yeah. Yeah.
How's your other class going? What's your project?
Sorry, the social media one.
Social media.
Oh god. Like the other night.
Stay away from the microphone.
The other night, I had to write 10 tweets about Netflix and this show Lost in Space that I don't watch. Okay. Took me 2 hours. Because like I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what do I write? Like, and like.
I thought you were coding something.
No. Like, and Vivian came up with some like we had to like do like some memes, but I don't know memes at all. So I'm like I had to research memes and stuff. Like, yeah, but yeah, no, it's brutal. I've been like this class's assignment's been on hiatus for me while I'm working on this because this other one's due like really soon. So I'm like, I'm gonna try and finish it today so I can get back to this assignment, but.
Yeah. Should I change the due date for this assignment? Because I know when I change everything, Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. We still have a lot of time for it.
I wanted it to be in between the two presentations. That way no one can say, ah.
So I made an electron app the other day. Like,
Oh,
for
you're
that
playing around with
presentation.
it? Yeah.
So easy.
Okay.
Like, it's ridiculously easy.
Okay.
But like the configuration of it, like if you just made like literally like an app that just has like a hello world in it, you could set it up in like maybe 15 minutes, like nothing. Yeah. So
Awesome. What documentation did you use to learn that?
I just followed a tutorial.
Okay.
Yeah, it was super simple. It was made like a little shopping list app. It only took an hour.
Nice. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's all JavaScript, which is cool.
Yeah, it's all
and
technology.
the thing is, obviously, it's like you could definitely like your app's never going to be as efficient if you write it in like a more low-level language. It'll be a faster app no matter what. But the time it takes to make a cross-platform application like C# or C++ is like way bigger than Electron. Because the app I made, it took an hour to make, and then you can compile it for Mac, you can compile it for Windows or Linux. So like that's really powerful because for me, like I don't care, like if I'm making an app for my home or something, right? Just something for my own life to make things easier. I don't care if it's like 10 milliseconds, slower when it does something. Like I just want it to be able to do it fast and not have to take a whole year to like develop it. Right? So for that, it's like really good. I see that's probably why they use it for Visual Studio Code, because now it's cross-platform and everything, which is good because I've never used Linux, but I'm sure there's not that many like programs like that can run on it. Windows though.
Awesome. So at Alex, when you go to the command line, is it the regular DOS proc or is it the PowerShell? Or is it something else? Or do you ever use it?
I hardly ever work in the command line. I've used PowerShell before, but like I said, I never really worked in the command line because my team leader does most of the project configuration stuff, like the build server and all that. Like we use a build server, so we have to, because we have our product's built on top of Sitefinity, right? But then we have to build it for all sorts of different Sitefinity builds. So basically, we have our like team foundation server. We push our changes to it, and then we have like multiple versions of our product.
Yeah.
Each version has to build for each Sitefinity version.
Right.
So in the end, like when we release a new build, which is usually like once or twice a week, it has to. There's like usually 60 different ELL packages that are created from the build server. So, and it's funny because when one person screws it up, all of a sudden you go to the build server and it's like XXXXX all the way up on every build failed. You're like, go to the commit history, Kassoon. It's always Kassoon. Yeah. There's like little things about it, like small things, like for example, we don't have the newest version of C#. We're like using one version old. So then when you're building it, your code will run, like it'll build properly, run, and everything looks good. And you push it to the build server, and it's like, this isn't a support feature C#. It's like, oh crap. So there's like little things you got to be aware of too. It's really neat though. Like, I feel like there's so many positions in this industry that I would hate. Just to be honest.
So what's next for you? You think?
I hope I hope that I do my next, like my last 2 semesters, and I can work there for like 4 or 5 years. Then like I want to work on a different product. The product development is so fun. It's like it makes the days go by so quickly.
Because was it not?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I like C#. I'd like to like try and stay with C#, but I mean I'm open to doing Node stuff or whatever. Like I'm definitely open to doing new technologies. It doesn't really matter if it's C#, but the product development part is really important because I like the research and development work so much better. Because I do a little bit of client work too, and I hate it so much. The clients are so annoying. Like literally, the whole time I've been building this project, this is the most recent one for them. I've been working on it for a month. The whole time, every time we show them, they're like, "Oh, this is amazing, best thing I've ever seen. Everything's so great." Every time, like literally, we were like, "Okay, there's a week left on the project, and I'll be working back on TPC full time." A week left, they're like, "Oh, so like our marketing team just gave us some whole new wireframes. By the way, like the whole new site now." I'm like, "Are you joking? I have to rebuild the whole site." I'm like, "This sucks." this would never happen in R&D work. Like, yeah, so that's what I don't like. Because like I always try to do things the best way the first time. So when I have to redo it for no reason other than it just is dumb, that kills me. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want to like try and find a job that's like an R&D. That's important to me. Yeah. Hopefully I can just get my job back. Yeah. So are you planning on like, becoming a full-time teacher eventually? Or?
I mean, if the job does open up, then sure, I'll try. The only downside at my stage is, I have to pick my career. My works in-house. So I have to be active. So am I allowed to leave work at 4?
Yeah.
Full-time professor or if I remember last year when I was teaching animation and I got a text saying my kid is sick.
Yeah.
Go. And I was in the middle of a lecture. Like I don't like that. Right?
For sure.
Or instead of working full-time in the library, I can go.
Yeah.
So I like where I'm at now, but if the position opens up, I'll apply, but I don't have hesitations to apply.
For sure.
So yeah. Especially if let's say full-time opening position opens up in college. Do I want to drive 40 minutes in the snow? Yeah.
No.
Risk my life.
Not really.
Trying to pick up my kid at home. Like,
yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because like I'm planning on moving out of town when I finish school.
Yeah.
I still want to work here though.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like a 45-minute drive moving from every day. Like, I'm planning to move to like Wabashine area. Like Wabashine, cold water.
Okay.
Because basically my girlfriend wants to buy a house. She saved up the money to put a down payment on a house.
Wow.
So like she's ready to go.
Okay.
I want to finish school though.
Yeah.
Because like I don't have a job or anything right now when I'm done at Pavlik. So I'm like I can't really afford to be paying a mortgage and stuff like that. So
They offered you? You told me that they offered you.
yeah, they will offer me a position if I quit school.
Right.
I'm like, nah, dude. Nah, like that just seems a little short-sighted.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, okay, it's time. Showtime.
Vivian, did you have a question? Okay. Josh was talking.
I'm wondering if I should just like target him like
That's a good question. I haven't thought about it. I think for next week, nothing else to assign to the labs regarding the assignment. So if I do assign a lab, it will be something else. Good question. I haven't thought about that. I'll make the lab document your code. do number 8, document your code.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're missing 1 or 2. There we go. All right. So just before we get back into it, I saw a couple of links on my Twitter the other day, so I want to share with you. So this one here is 2018 State of JavaScript Survey. Every once in a while, every year, surveys come out. And let me just go to the introduction for a second here. Introduction. So JavaScript is always changing, new libraries, new frameworks. So they have this survey. Let's take a look at the demographics for the survey. Participation by countries. They give you salaries, average salaries per country. The really interesting one is these 2 links here, the JavaScript flavors and the front-end frameworks link. So JavaScript flavors. So this is the most popular, obviously, ES6. And you can see it's used, the red means used it and would use again. The next one after that is TypeScript. And TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. You will learn that next year's class of the rich when you learn Angular, because Angular uses TypeScript. It just has types along with JavaScript. So instead of saying const string equals hello world, you now have const string in brackets variable name equals hello world, just so that you have types, that kind of thing. I forget if it has brackets or not. But anyways, but here, the front end frameworks link The front end remains the key battleground for JavaScript, but now that the dust has cleared, it's starting to look like only two combatants are left standing: React and Vue. My hunch is that those on the Angular side is getting to the Vue side only because I keep on reading how Angular is very hard to find good documentation for, and there's a lot of frustration with that. So that's why people are switching over to either React or Vue. Now this blue section here means heard of it and would like to learn it. So as you can see, Vue still has a lot of potential to grow. And Vue actually passed React in terms of GitHub stars as of June. So, and it's the newest kid on the block out of the three. So I still think it has lots of room to grow. So yeah, just check that out if you want to have time. Another link that I saw on my Twitter, I subscribe to this one channel called Vue.js Job. They just posted out a job yesterday in Toronto, which was here, Toronto, Canada. Let's check out what you need to know for a typical Vue job. Let's see here, qualifications, 5+ years experience. By the way, whenever you see 5+ years or 3+ year experience, just disregard it, just apply anyway, right? Sound knowledge of Webpack, Vue 2, excellent knowledge of SVG, D3 is a charting library, excellent knowledge of ES6, knowledge of TypeScript, Chrome, Firefox developer tools. So it's always good to know what they're looking for, so you can try to aim toward that if you don't know it. So check that out. Okay, so the next topic is more about modules. So this is something I never taught last year because this didn't exist last year in terms of the browser accepting modules. So remember that statement a few slides ago where I said, asterisk here, browsers couldn't import code, asterisk, asterisk. As of recently, that statement is not true anymore for modern browsers. So here we are. Before we get to that, I'm going to talk about another concept in JavaScript called closures. This could be an interview question. Closures is one of those important concepts. So let me, in words, this is what it is. So whenever you declare a new function, for example, const my function equals function blah, blah, blah. Whenever you say something like that and you assign it to a variable, you store the function definition, but you store something called the closure. The closure contains all the variables that are in scope at that time of creation of the function. Think of it like a backpack. So whenever you have that expression of const my function equals function definition, you have a backpack called closure. And in that backpack, it stores all the variables that were in scope at the time of the creation. Okay? Closures is important because it forms the basis of modules. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to open up CodePen for a second. Watch along. Oh, sorry, create a new pen. A lot of today is just watching. It's not a lot of you coding. It's just a lot of absorbing. Okay, so let's do that. Let's say let my function equals function. We'll accept some kind of parameter. So let me zoom it in because I can predict already what you're going to say. All right. Function y, and I say return y plus 1 at the console. Okay, so here's my function definition. Let's use it. Let's say console log, and then inside I'll say my func equals, or not equals, but pass in some kind of number. All right, everyone understands that, right? You know what's happening in the hood? Easy peasy, right? Yes, good. So that's just a regular function. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. Instead of returning a number, let's return a function. I have an outer function here. Inside that outer function, I'm going to declare an inner function, which will be the same thing as our y plus 1 earlier function. And then the return statement of this outer function, the inner function. How to use this? To use this, we can say, const my function equals outer function. Brackets means run it. Okay, let me just console log my function. Let me see what that produces. Produces that inner function, which is exactly what I returned, right? So if I want to run it, let's say my function, maybe 10. Now it's producing the same exact value as it did before. Cool, right? You understand that concept? We're going to take it one level higher. Here's where the closures happen. Let's say that here I want to pass in a variable so that this +1 is a variable that I'm going to give it. So I don't want it to be +1. I want it to be plus my variable. How can I do that? I can do that by saying this. Outer function, pass in some kind of variable like, I don't know, 1. So that means my function now has to have a parameter like x. And that x now will be here instead of the +1. What do you think will happen if I say my function, and I put in there a number like 2? Okay, so let me just comment this out so it doesn't run. What do you think would happen? So I'm going to pass in 1. So 1 goes in here. As it goes through here, like we don't know what y is yet, but it'll be y plus 1 or y plus 10 if I passed in 10, right? Whatever. And then I'm returning the inner function, which will be this plus return y plus 10. So when I say my function calling it with 2, that means 2 is now in here. Will it add? The question is, will it add 2 plus 10 even though the x variable is no longer there supposedly? That's the question. I'm hoping you see the oddity of that. So let me uncomment this and see what we get. Did I do it right? Because it's supposed to. Outer function, inner function y plus x, return inner function, const by function equals outer function 10. How come I didn't get anything? My function's 5. Again? Thank you. Yes, simple things. The oddity that I want you to realize is how did it know? How did it remember? Well, even before that, the observation I want you to know is notice it remembered. It remembered my 10. And at first glance, you might be thinking, but wait a minute, at this point, it should have forgot about the 10, but it didn't. It remembered it. And let's see something here. If I inspect the web page for a second under, shoot, where'd it go here? I wanted that. Console log that. So what is that? That is my function. Yeah, so console log that. The arrow. No? No arrow? There's the arrow. Was that under proto? Or was that under scopes? There, scopes, closure, there. So under scopes, closure, it remembered the 10. So this is the backpack that I was talking about earlier. So here's the big idea. Big idea is, I'll put it in the comments. Outer function takes a single parameter, right? At this point here, parameter x is an inner variable. Now this inner function uses x, so it has, and here's the key word, it has closure for it. It remembers it because it's in the backpack, so to speak. And that's why I can assign something like any number here, like outer function has maybe 7, and when I call my function 5, it'll be the right thing. So it's sort of like almost like a factory almost. I can define my initial thing, and I'm creating a new factory. Anyways, the big idea is this is the basis of modules. Okay, so if I had, for this return statement, all I'm going to make is one more additional change. Instead of returning a function, I'm going to return that function in an object format. So if I say it like this, return an empty object, and then inside that empty object, I'm going to have a key value. I'm going to have some kind of key here, and the value will be the inner function. So then over here, when I say const, object equals outer function 2, I can then say object, and then, whatever this key name is, I'll just call it key2, whatever. Key2, add 2, and it should say, oh yeah, I have to console log it. Log, should give me the appropriate response of 4. So that is the big idea. So this is just theory of closures. If that's an interview question, just remember, if they ask you what is closure, it's just like a way of an inner function remembering the variables in the outer function that encapsulates it, so that it's in the backpack, so to speak. So just remember that. So anyways, here's the intro to modules. Okay, so this is new. I'm getting this from this page right here, Chrome ES modules. There's an article that I've linked to. And the new thing is JavaScript modules are now supported in all major browsers. So I'm going to be going over this web page in terms of the highlights of it by showing you the example that they show. This is where I want you to participate. So I want you to create 2 HTML pages. All right, so let's go into Visual Studio Code. Let's open up. Where do I want to go? I'll call it temp 2. All right. All right. So we'll call the first one with mod.html. And we'll call the second one no mod.html. So again, do the exclamation mark tab. So you got some infrastructure there. Okay, here's the difference. Go to the with mod.html page. Actually, no, forget it. Go to the regular page, the no module page, and just put in a script tag there. And inside the script tag, say console log hello world, okay? Actually, hello from no mod.html, just to be more specific. In the other one, so copy all of that script stuff, copy that, put it in your other one called with mod.html. The only difference is that in the attribute for the script tag, you're going to say type module in quotes. And another difference is I want you to run both the things using a local server. Okay, so you can't open it using with no server. I want you to open both of the server. I'm going to turn on my server, open with live server. So there's my with mod HTML, and there's my no mod.html. Look at the console log for both of them. Question, is there any difference? Answer, no difference. Not yet anyway. No difference visibly as of right now. However, if we go back to that slide before, this slide right here, there is a difference under the hood in terms of parts. So whenever you say script type equals module, it's the same thing as script defer. Okay, so it's still parsing. Once it reaches your script module, it parses it too in parallel with your HTML. If your module requires to import other JavaScript code, it does that too, while it's still in parallel parsing the HTML. And then at the end of the parsing of HTML, it'll run your code. But the big takeaway here is, oh, there's two ways to run code now in my HTML page. I can just use the regular script that I know and love, or I can have a script type module. Right? Now, there is a difference though. Here's the difference. Everyone do this. So in both code, say something like this, var a equals some kind of value. So var a equals true, save that, go to your other page, say var a equals true, do that. Okay. Now go back to your web page and let's see something. So in the console, I want you to console log the window. So if you just type window, which is the same thing as console log window, enter. This is the, actually I want you to start off with the no mod one. So for the no mod one, type in window, enter. You see your value there when you click on the arrow for window. Do you see your value somewhere? Yes. So realize in traditional JavaScript way, whenever you said var something, what you're really doing is you're adding your something as a new property under the global window object, right? So think of window as this big, huge object. And when you say var a, you now have a new property. So you can say now window.a equals true. That's all you're doing. Do the same thing or inspect the other one with the module. If you open the window there, do you see your value there? No. Here's the lesson to be learned. Modules has what's called a lexical scope, meaning its very top scope never leaks into the global. So everything that's in the module is contained. That now solves the initial problem we had when remember how we included moment as a script tag, and then every other script tag below moment, like our index.js, for example, has access to the things above it. But so same with every other script tag has access to the moment too, even though they're not supposed to, right? Modules solve that problem. You've now contained everything. There's no more leaking. That's beautiful. Okay. Okay, next step. Inside your folder, create a new file called, we'll call it lib.mjs. M will stand for module. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be .mjs, it could be .js. But we'll just be consistent with convention. So we'll say lib.mjs. And the code I want you to use and copy is from my slides here. So copy this code right here, paste it into your lib.mjs. So let's just take a look at what's happening here for a second. So this is a function Right? So it's as if we're saying function string, and it's as if we're saying this. Right? That's what we're kind of saying. Let's repeat what I just did there. And we have another function here called shout, which basically uppercases everything. However, notice we're using two new things, two new keywords. We're using the word export here. The way I'm currently in my mind, this is how I visualize how the export works. And I'm using objects as an example. So let's pretend we have, let emails object equals this array of objects. Actually, we'll just let it equal one object, one email. So, you have your name, blah, 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 Al, whatever, body, whatever, right? So if I wanted to access this value of FDSA, in the past, I'd say email.fdsa, because all of these key properties is publicly accessible to me. Imagine, this is how I think modules work. I think of a module as one big object like this, except everything inside it is automatically private, which means I cannot say email.fdsa unless I put the word export in front of it, kind of thing. That's how I'm currently thinking about modules. Change over time, but that's how I'm thinking it. So that means I could access email.fdsa because, and I included export there. That's my mental model. Again, that could change. So because we have export keywords in front of these two functions, I can now have access. If I did not have export, even if I tried to import this lib.mjs file into another file, I cannot see this repeat function. I cannot use it directly, and I cannot modify it. Okay, so this MJS file, I'm exporting two things, which means I can now import those two things somewhere else. Here's how to do it. So in both your files, you're going to have this. So let's erase our script so far from either page with mod.html and no mod. Just erase what we have. Let's do this. Say import. Okay, that's a new keyword. Then we're using the curly brackets because think of these curly brackets as object destructuring, right? So remember object destructuring. Let me just remind you. The object destructuring. Objects. Where is it? Object destruction, right? So if you had an object like this, P. Here's one object with P and Q assigned to O. You could say create two new variable names or two variable names that refer to that same thing. Sorry, not two new variables. So this has to match what was existing before. And notice how this exactly is what we're saying. We're saying import curly bracket repeat comma shout because that's already what was in our original module. That's how I'm currently thinking about it. Okay, so after that, you're going to say from, and then you're going to give it a path of .mgs. As of right now, this path, this location is called the module specifier, and as of right now, you can only put an absolute or relative path in there, which means you have to have this / thing, or maybe a / thing, or a / thing, but you can't have just a name. Not yet, anyway. Okay, so let's have a / there. So after you've imported it, theoretically, we now have access to repeat and shout. So let's try to use it. Let's say console log, and we'll use the first one, repeat, and we'll say repeat hi. And then we'll do another console log to access the other function called shout. Okay, hi world. So I put two console log statements there, one using repeat function and one using the shout function. So copy that code and make sure the other web page has it as well. And we're going to try it in both. What happens? So I copied that JavaScript in both. Let's see our web pages. Let's see the difference. Let me just clear my console just to refresh and refresh both of them. Okay, so let's start with the noModule.html. So noMod.html, it's saying unexpected token. Why? Because it doesn't recognize the regular script way, right? We're just using this. Here's the noMod.html. We're using the regular script way. It doesn't recognize this way of importing, right? Just like before, it doesn't recognize the require kind of thing. But the other one, if you look at the other one, it works, right? It says hi and it says world, right? Works, yes. So that is the difference. So with the module, you can now, and think of the beauty of this, you can now import other JavaScript code within your own file using the type equals module attribute. This is new. This did not exist in modern browsers last year. So I'm still learning this too, but the consequences of this is another game changer, and I'll get to that in a second. Another thing you should know is that there's another way to export and import something. So you don't have to do this, but if I had said, let me comment this out for a second. If I had said export default here, this keyword default means that when I import it, so let me go to my with mod.html. Let me comment out the one that I don't need there. When it comes time to import it, I can name it whatever I want. I can say, because I use the default in the other one, I can say import whatever variable name I want, and then I can actually use that variable name here. Let's see if that works. It works. It's working. So that's another way of importing and exporting thing. So in my mind, there's two ways to import something. You could say import whatever variable name you want, but that assumes that the module has the keyword default. If it doesn't have the word default, then you have to use the name it was given, which is shout. But then, in that case, you have to say import curly bracket shout. Okay, so that's two things I have to remember. Okay, let's go back to my slides for a second. Here's why it's a game changer. Browsers that understand this type equals module attribute, they will automatically ignore the no module attribute. So here in the code on the left-hand side is how you would target modern browsers versus older browsers. Right? So the modern browsers, because they recognize type equals module, they will run this module code. If they don't understand module, they'll run your fallback JavaScript code for older browsers. However, here's the game changer. If a browser understands your module code, meaning it understands type equals module, that means it also supports features that were around before modules were invented in the browser, such as arrow functions or async await. Why is that a game changer? Number 3, that means you don't have to transpile using bundlers like Webpack or Parcel anymore. That's the game changer, right? So just an hour ago, I said, here's why we use Webpack and Parcel. It bundles your modules. Now, this came out, and according to this web page here, which I got it from ES modules, Control F for the word Webpack, that one there. With modules, it becomes possible to develop websites without using bundlers such as Webpack, Rollup, or Parcel. That's another game changer. A word about the MJS. .mjs or .js file extensions, they don't really matter, but it is convention to use MJS to make it clear to you that it is a module in your coding, and also to be consistent with Node, because Node is trying to go in that direction. Currently, when you take your course with Rich next year, you will still be using the common.js require statements, not rather than the import statements, but Node is slowly getting to that import method. It's just you have to use a flag. And so they're using MJS and Node as well. Now, a question you might be asking yourself is, oh, okay, so I don't need Webpack anymore, so I can just put all my modules in one, but doesn't that slow performance? And here's Chrome's recommendation. Their recommendation is keep bundling. And they say it's fine to use native JavaScript modules directly if you're using it for local development or for small web apps with less than 100 modules with a shallow dependency tree of less than 5. However, if it's greater than 300, then you'll see performance being slow. But they still recommend bundling, and they talk about the trade-offs between bundling and not bundling. So I think that article is worth a read. I did link that to my slide right here. See where it says see dynamic imports. And oh yeah, dynamic imports. That's another new thing. So what you just learned is called static way of including modules, but there's also something new called dynamic. Where's the dynamic one? There, dynamic import. So it says here, so far, we've only used static import, but sometimes you don't want to load a module up front, but rather on demand for performance reasons, right? So you can do that by saying import and then your path. And so that's another new thing. So it's just something to keep in mind in case you do get a JavaScript job, that you will know what's coming down the pipeline, and that your knowledge is current. Okay. That is all I have to say for modules before I wrap it up with the Vue ecosystem, which is just one slide. Any questions so far? Not? Okay. So Vue ecosystem, think of this as the JavaScript landscape. I'm going to name off a bunch of tools that Vue uses, but automatically think, oh, React has the same kind of tool. Okay, so it's not just Vue. Okay, the first thing I wanted to mention that I didn't mention before regarding the CLI is this. So in the past, last week, I mentioned that you can say, Vue, create, my app, whatever. Let's say you hate the command line. Vue CLI actually has something just for you. If you say Vue UI, you can do all the command line stuff in a nice GUI single page application. Ta-da! Vue Project Manager. Projects, create, import. You can create your stuff, different projects that you may have, import stuff, whatever. Okay, that's just something I wanted to mention. Oh, again, that's okay. We're going to close in a few minutes. Second thing I wanted to mention, Storybook. So React is the main framework that a lot of people use, and one of the tools that React has is called Storybook. And only as of last month did Storybook expand its capabilities so that Vue can now use it as well. This is what it is. I'm going to show you a couple minutes of what Storybook and how it's useful.
All it's going to do is it's basically going to run a page app. That's all Storybook is a single page app. And it's going to host all of your stories that you wrote previously, the documentation files that you see running locally.
It helps you build components.
So now I have a demo of all the code. This is the Vue the kitchen sink. This is on their documentation, so any of you can go look at this afterwards. So the first example of what kinds of things can you do with Storybook, it's not just for showing things. You can actually interact. So click this button. Don't click me. I'll tell you what to do. I'm going to click this button. It's going to log an action to the console here. So this is actually the actions console. You don't have to use the Chrome developer tools when you're doing this. This is cool because you can see I clicked something, it triggered a callback, and it's just a simple test. I don't have to go and implement an entire API response. I can just make sure that a callback is firing. So it's really cool for code demo purposes. Second demo, this is for actions, what we just saw, but if you see what I just did here, I clicked the link, it took you to a different section of your documentation, so that was cool. A built-in storybook thing called link to. Knobs is another really cool thing. Let's see here. So instead of just writing 15 different stories in your storybook documentation, you can have one sandbox that allows people to come in and play with different knobs, they call them. And so it's basically different ways to tweak, just like you would in the Vue developer tools. Tweak your values, see things change in live in real time. So I'm changing the price here, it's going to be before. You can see things update. So this is a great way for developers who did not create this code to come in here and play around with your components and see what it actually does before they decide to use it. That's basically it.
That's basically it. So that's your 1 minute intro to Storybook. Yeah, so that was used in React for last year, and now it's come onto Vue, so that's good for making components. Another thing, a CSS framework that's associated with Vue is called Vuetify. Think of it as like another Bootstrap. So you just have your different components like before. So UI components like your alerts, like your buttons kind of thing. Although you could use basically any framework you want. Another tool is called Vuex. So React, which was made by Facebook, they came across a problem, and I don't know if you remember in Facebook, but you remember those times in Facebook, like years ago, where you had like your alerts would tell you two, with a red 2, meaning you have 2 updates, and then you click it and then it's not there, right? That was a problem. And when Facebook debugged it, they realized that, oh, it's because there's too many things happening, and they needed a better way for state management. So they created something called Redux, which is based upon something called Flux. And so then Vue created something after that called Vuex. So here is a quick intro to what Vuex is and why you'd use it.
Managing state in an application full of components can be difficult. Facebook discovered this the hard way, which is why they created the Flux pattern Vuex is designed after. Vuex is Vue's own state management pattern and library. And in this video, I'll be showing you why you might need Vuex and how it can enhance your application. When we talk about state, we mean the data components depend on and render, things like blog posts, to-do items, and so on. Without Vuex, as your app grows, each Vue component might have its own version of state. But if one component changes its state and a distant relative is also using that same state, we need to communicate that change. There's a default way of communicating events up and passing prompts down to share data, but that can become overly complicated. Instead, we can consolidate all of our state into one place, one location that contains the current state of our entire application, one single source of truth. This is what Vuex provides, and every component has direct access to this global state. And just like the Vue instances data, this global state is reactive. So when one component updates the state, other components that are using that data get notified, automatically receiving the new value. But just consolidating data into one single source of truth doesn't fully solve the problems of state management. What happens when many different components alter the state in different ways from different locations? We need some standardization. Otherwise, changes to state can be unpredictable and untraceable. This is why Vuex provides a full state management pattern for a simple and standardized way to make state changes. And if you're familiar with Vue, Vuex should look pretty similar. Just like we create a new Vue instance, we can create a new Vuex store with new Vuex.store. While the instance has data, the Vuex store has state, both of which are reactive. The Vue instance has methods, which, among other things, can update our data, while the Vuex store has actions, which can update the Vuex state. And while the instance has computer properties, which can access our data, the Vuex store has getters, which can access our state. The difference here is the store also has mutations. Mutations are used to commit and track state changes. It's a best practice to have our actions call mutations which update our state directly. And by using the Vue dev tools, we can do time travel debugging, and we can roll back a mutation which reverts the state to its previous value. So let's look at an example Vuex. In our state, we have a loading status as well as a to-dos array. In our mutations, we have set loading status, which takes the state of our loading status and takes the state of our to-dos and sets it accordingly. We have fetch to-dos. Let's walk through this code. We're taking in the context object, which contains all the properties of our Vuex.
By the way, this here, Axios, think of that as fetch. It's just a library.
Sure, which allows us to commit mutations. The first mutation we're committing is set loading status, which will set the loading status to loading. Then we're making an API call, and when that response returns, we'll commit the set loading status mutation again, setting it to not loading. And finally, we'll commit set to-dos, setting the to-do state with the response we got from our API call.
So that's basically,
If we need the ability to only retrieve...
that's basically Vuex in a nutshell. So when your app becomes larger, there is a point in time where you need to use Vuex to make sure the state makes the app consistent. Then we have something called Vue Router. So here is... this is JS Fiddle, which is exactly like CodePen. And the neat thing about it is, so here's your HTML section up here. Here's your CSS, here's your JS, and here's your web page. So let me just interact with this web page. So I can click on here, go to foo. It says foo right there. I can say go to bar, it goes bar right there. But here's what's happening under the hood. Here's the HTML side. You're actually using something called router link. That's part of the Vue router. So, and notice how the attribute says this goes to foo. So that's because, let's inspect this for a second. If I right click inspect, let me see what the real DOM is. It's actually, it turns it into a, so the router link turns it into an a href to that path of foo. That's what's happening under the hood, right? So when you say router link, it eventually turns into an anchor tag with the path of foo for the href. But here, notice here is a router view markup, which is where your output goes. So in the JavaScript here, so when I click on view, it wants to go to /foo. Well, what is that? It's defined over here under routes. So if a user wants to go to /foo, then serve them this component called foo. Okay, where's that? That's right up here. Here's the component called foo. So serve them this div tag of foo. And that's why when I click on foo, you see foo here because if I'm being served this div tag of foo. Right, see? Div tag foo right there. So that's, in essence, what router is. So you can go to different paths in your URL, and it kind of hijacks that. It doesn't actually go anywhere. It doesn't actually do any GET requests. It just serves up what you had before for your component. And next year for Rich's class, you will use that for Angular, because Angular has its own routing. Vue native. So for the longest time, you could make mobile apps called React Native. Now, just a couple months ago, someone brilliantly decided to make Vue Native, which is just a wrapper around React Native. So you can create things like this using Vue now. So basically apps, mobile apps using Vue. Nux.js, think of this as the Vue CLI that you just learned, except with a couple of more things under your belt. So the Nux.js is very, very, very similar to the Vue CLI command prompt, where you create, where you say Vue create blah, 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 and it creates that whole scaffold. Well, you can say the same thing in Nux. It creates a scaffold for you, but there's a few other things baked into the box. Number one is the power to have server-side rendering, which is right. I think it was the number 1 or 2. But basically, here's the thing. When you serve a Vue app, because there's so much JavaScript, it may take a lot of time to actually initially display something for the very first page. And so one solution to that is, OK, forget serving them a bunch of JavaScript for the first load. Let's serve them the traditional HTML stuff for first load. But problem, how do we get the view rendered stuff? Oh, let's create something called view server-side rendering, where the view JavaScript will run in Node, create the HTML that it needs, spit that HTML out just like a regular server, so that the first index.html page load will be very fast and spontaneous. Meanwhile, as that's appearing in the background, the JavaScript is now loading as it normally would. So then you can have the single page app experience. That's why server-side rendering is becoming popular. It's basically what's old is new again. The next thing I wanted to mention is touching upon a new thing called static site generators. Show of hands, who's heard of things like Jekyll or Hugo? No? OK, so here's a new thing. People are realizing that, oh, OK, to create a basic website like documentation, we don't need to create all this markup. What we could do is let's just do this. Let's create Markdown. So, and this touches upon that other architecture I mentioned called Jamstack. The JAM stands for JavaScript API Markup. So that M stands for Markdown, really. So they're realizing that, oh, for the content part of the web page, let's just present the user a CMS with a nice little text box or whatever. And in the back, they're just going to create Markdown. So they don't have to really create any HTML. And then in the back, the final result will look like this, right? So that's what people are realizing is for the Jamstack architecture, you just have to create Markdown content, and then that Markdown will eventually get transpiled to HTML. And so the user never has to worry about the HTML side of things, and it's fast. So yes, you can create. It's good for documentation and for just simple websites. So yeah, Jekyll, Hugo, those are other static site generators. Right now, for the one that's popular for the React side is called Gatsby. And let's just look at Gatsby for a second. I've been hearing a lot of noise about Gatsby lately. And it's the same thing. It's a static site generator using React. I've never touched it, but I know it's making a lot of it's hot right now. View server side rendering, I think I touched upon that. And the other last three things I want to mention, this is not really view related, but things you will come to know eventually, I think, is stuff that deals with testing. So there's so many testing frameworks like Jest, Mocha, Jasmine. I think Jest is the most popular one right now. And just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to play 1 minute.
It's called a matcher. Okay? There's a lot of different matchers in Jest. We're going to use 2B. Okay, so basically, we're going to say that this function is 2B4. Okay, this function with these parameters is 2B4.
This is how you test your code.
So let's go ahead and save that, and let's try to run it. So
and then in the
out, and we'll simply say npm test.
Yeah.
We put it in there, and Jest should automatically pick
there.
it up. And
so you run the script npm run test, right? Remember that under the script section you had the build, you had the serial. You also have test. So you say npm run test, and then it'll present you this screenshot of how many tests passed, how many failed, so that you will automatically know which components need debugging before you actually upload it to GitHub. In fact, I've read workflows where you cannot upload to GitHub because if you try, it'll run these tests in the background, and if it fails, it won't actually upload to GitHub. So there, you can actually control your workflow to include tests as well. Like, and another testing thing that's been hot as of last year is called Cypress. So Jest is good for unit testing. Cypress is good for end-to-end testing. Let me just play a little bit of this.
Open source test editor built for the modern writing, running, and recording tests much simpler, easier, and faster than ever before. Whether you're testing the various login states of your application or complex drag and drop operations that you've seen on web apps and Trello boards, you can easily wait for dynamic content to load or make sure things look good on mobile responsive views. With Cypress, you have not possible before today. You can programmatically control UI widgets, tree views, and multi-selects, as well as waiting for the results of an autocomplete to finish. You can even start out network requests to control how the responses are returned. This means you can easily test edge cases, such as when no results are returned, or test what happens if your server is down. As you write commands, Cypress executes them in real time, providing you with visual feedback as they run. Commands are interactive, so as we hover over them, Cypress time travels back to the application state when this command ran. When clicking on a command, we receive helpful debugging output to our console, and based on the type of command, we oftentimes interact with them. There's so much more that Cypress can do, so we hope that you'll check out our doc.
Yeah, so that's been making a lot of noise as of last year. And the last thing I wanted to mention is GraphQL. So in this class, I've taught you how to use REST endpoints, right? Creating your own JSON APIs. Well, this new thing came on the market maybe last year called GraphQL. And here's the problem that it solves. Let's say that you work for Amazon and you're building, the page where it has the shopping cart and all it's displaying a product, but the product has all these details that are coming from different REST endpoints. So the problem is you have to do a fetch for this one REST endpoint to display the picture. You have to do another fetch to get the product details. You got another fetch to different, and then sooner or later, if you have like 5, 10 fetches, it becomes unmanageable. So then someone created something called GraphQL, which I have yet to learn. But here's the beauty of it. Here's your query. You send in this query, and here's your JSON response. You get exactly what you asked for, no matter. And so behind the scenes, there's a server that's doing all the fetching from the various endpoints, but you don't care about that because you just send in the one request and you get the one response back. And that's in essence what GraphQL is, and that's becoming hot as well. So that, in a nutshell, is the current landscape of JavaScript client side in the world today. Any other questions, comments? Before I close it up, I have nothing else to show. That's it. The end. Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah. So for your lab or in-class exercise, just remember, it's just your 50-50. Using English words only, try to describe how you'll do it, and then comment on another person's algorithm as well. And the lab is the same thing except actually coded. And that's it. So next week, I'm going to be teaching, which is something I've yet to learn, service workers, which is responsible for making progressive web apps. So this is the newest hot thing in this JavaScript landscape. So that should be exciting. Okay, cool. Go home. Hey, Matt. How's it going?